Step one, you say we need to talk. He walks, you say sit down.
Hey, so there's a lot of things I learned this whole entire semester. And one of the questions I chose to talk about was, what have you learned about writing and or research that you didn't know before? And this semester was very helpful because I learned how to use a lot of the library sources, such as like going into the library system and how you can like rent articles and use the books or find ways to get them so you don't have to pay for them individually. So that was really nice. And I also learned how to better utilize sources, especially since in my last paper it was really hard to find good like scholarly sources because I did it on a YouTube, which is a social media site, and I understand this is very difficult. But sources like that helped out a lot because I was able to find articles from places that were known for being more credible than some others, and it gave me better ways of better interpretation throughout the paper and better explanation and backed up evidence for what I was saying in my paper. I'd also have to say I learned a lot about writing this semester because rhetorical situations is not something you really talk about in middle school or high school, and so this class really helped like approach topics at a certain standpoint and analyze the situations and the space and the microaggressions and the prejudices and situations and how to better analyze them. And I feel like that contributed a lot to my success this semester and probably for my future success in future semesters.
Back at you stare politely right on through.
So another question I had analyzed for this reflection is, what experiences of learning to read and write have you drawn on in order to write on a college level? Personally, I feel like there was a lot of situations when I was younger that brought me to be able to read and write on a college level. For instance, in kindergarten, my mom would read to me. We didn't really have much money or anything, but reading is something she could do. It's something easy, and anyone could do it for me, like if she wasn't able to read to me. And once I caught on reading, I loved it. Like, I loved being able to escape into a good book because sometimes life sucks, and it was just great to get away. And so especially in kindergarten and through third grade, it was just like reading all these stories. Like personally, I read a lot of from Cat in the Hat to like every Genevieve Jones book I've ever written. It's kind of sad. And I also started in a little more complicated books. I was always towards the top end of my class for reading, and I feel like that's a very successful thing because it helped me in the long run for not just for Lexile tests and things that really don't matter, but for writing when we first started that, because that is a lot more difficult because reading, the ideas are already there, you just have to be able to interpret the idea, and writing is when you have to come up with an idea, interpret it your own way, put it on paper. And that first started to interest me third, fourth grade, because I began writing poetry and reading about famous poets and famous authors. Stories about them and what they had to go through really interested me. Especially I became interested in Langston Hughes, and we had to do this thing where you read a poem or a story out loud, and I read a Langston Hughes poem. It wasn't Life for Me, no Crystal Stair, but it was another one. He's a very famous author, and I very do appreciate everything that he has contributed to the whole entire English atmosphere or something. Something far more intelligent than those words I just used. And I also in that same time period had published a story, because that's what they do. You draw pictures and write a little story. It doesn't make any sense, but it really tries to spike kids' interest, and I feel like this was another thing that helped draw me into furthering my writing skills, because with that it increased to middle school. Into middle school, you had to start actually writing papers, and that was like a real struggle at the beginning for me, because I was like, but why? I don't know what to write about. I don't feel inspired by anything. And we had to, usually do it on like book reports and stuff on books that weren't very interesting. No offense to my English teachers, but they just weren't that interesting at the time to me. But over the time, I think it helped me. Even though the books weren't that interesting, I was still able to develop some type of idea off them, and that helps you in the long run, because not everything you write about is always going to be the best. Like, not every book you read is the best. There's tons of books out there that I'm like, why did you fail me at life? But like, the complexity can develop then, because you are taking in more information and you're learning more words and you're learning more styles, and this like takes your writing to like the next level, which not only prepared me for high school, where you're just writing all the time about research papers, book reports, comparing tons of things that like annotated bibliography, like why did that matter? But like doing those exercises showed me how to choose like better sources, and like, which has all helped me on a college level at the end of the day, because writing the reports and stuff, well, obviously you have to write essays and stuff in college, and then the extent of writing so many has prepared me for writing these longer essays that we did, such as the Identity in Space, which was like 6 to 7 pages or 5 to 6 pages, which is a lot longer than the typical essay that you have to write. Also, tons of just practice helps. So I feel like all these skills that I've drawn on over the years have helped me. And I'm gonna have to say that if it wasn't for me starting to read in kindergarten, like if it wasn't for some type of an adult influencing my life, say, here, look, go read a book, instead of, go outside and play, which is another good thing. But if someone hadn't like, here, Kayla, go read, I don't feel like I wouldn't be the quality of writer and reader I am today, because it took that little tiny push at the beginning for me to like fall in love with what I love to do, which is read, and which drew on later in life, in like middle school, when I started to write poetry and stuff, which isn't very good, I'd have to say, but it was definitely a way for me to express myself, and I love to do that, because sometimes I find it hard to be creative, because I'm not exactly an art major or anything of that sort, but it is important to always express yourself, and I feel like that those are what helped me become the college writer and reader I am today. So last but not least, would I have changed anything this semester about your writing? And my answer is yes and no, because I mean, definitely for my first paper, that's going to be different, yes, because I'm going to be honest, I didn't put that much energy as I did in my first paper as I did in my last two, because I just didn't want to do it, and it was just getting accustomed to the whole college life, and it was kind of a struggle, because everyone was like going back to visit their families and stuff, and I was just like, I'm going to be here till Thanksgiving break, and I'm not going to see my family, and I wasn't used to it, because I'm always used to being around family, like no matter what, some type of family members are always around, and now it was like the complete opposite, like you're on your own, and then it was just hard to get used to. I feel that the further on I went, the more effort and time and effort and energy I put into it, and I feel like the happier I was with my writing because of it. I was able to find better sources in the last two than I was in the first one, because I was just kind of confused and I didn't really want to ask for help, and I was just being that annoying college student who was afraid to ask for help. And then one thing I also kind of regret is not all 3 times writing about something that actually particularly interested me. I didn't really realize till the 3rd paper that I could write about whatever I wanted as long as it pertained to the subject. And I feel like the 3rd paper is when I did my best, because I actually wrote about something I was interested in. and that is always a benefit for the writer, because when you're not interested in the subject, you really don't put as much time and effort in it because you don't care, you don't have that level of like wanting to do it, because you would just rather procrastinate than do something you don't want to do. But for my third paper, I kept writing and writing, and I had to cut parts out because I know I was going too long and I was just talking too much. And I feel like I'd rather be that type of writer because it's easier to cut parts out than it was to like just fluff it up the paper just to make the word count. And so this semester I feel that I like my writing that I was doing, but I am thankful that I took this class because my third paper was definitely a lot better than my first paper, and I think I improved a lot on my writing skills and on my research skills through this process. And I've also gained intellect about how I can use subjects I'm interested in and turn them into assignments and kind of express myself through those types of things. And I feel like that's really what's made this class very helpful this semester. I hope that my writing still continues to be this quality after this semester, even though I'm not taking another English class like for a while, just because how my schedule's working out. But I feel like I'm going to keep writing and practicing writing just like that we've been doing, and work a lot on rhetoric and maybe do some English practices, because I really do want to be a better writer in the future, just in case I do decide to do something amazing and I need to write about it. So yeah.
Let him know that you know best, 'cause after all you do know best. Try to slip past his defense without granting